Thanks, Christy. Thanks, Christy. Hi, everyone. It's great to have you here. Thanks for taking the time away from your busy schedules. I know this time of year is really busy for you as teachers, and I appreciate you taking the time to learn some more about Word Warm-Ups Live today. So here's our agenda for today. If I can make it go forward. There we go. We're going to start by talking about why Word Warm-Ups Live works. We'll work through some assessments and look at instructional decisions that you make based on those assessments. We'll talk about how it works. I'll take you through a demonstration of the steps for completing the various types of exercises in the program. And finally, I'll highlight how you can meet various student needs with Word Warm-Ups Live. You're probably aware that Read Live is an online platform. And when you purchase a student license for Read Live, they get access to all 4 programs. Word Warm-Ups Live focuses on building students' automaticity in decoding. So it's mostly focused on phonics. If you have students who need support in fluency and phonics, the Read Naturally Live phonics series is also an option. And we'll talk about how to make that decision in a little bit. Here's a table that shows a comparison of the 4 programs in the Read Live platform. Read Naturally Live is our flagship fluency intervention. It also supports vocabulary, comprehension, and phonics. Word Warm-Ups Live is our separate standalone phonics intervention, and many students work in Word Warm-Ups Live for phonics and then Read Naturally Live for fluency. 1 Minute Reader Live is our structured independent reading program, and it offers reading practice for any student. So students who are already working in Read Naturally Live or Word Warm-Ups Live can also work in 1 Minute Reader Live for additional independent practice. And finally, last but not least, Read Naturally Live Espanol is the Spanish language version of Read Naturally Live. It can be used to build Spanish reading fluency for native Spanish speakers, or it can be used to support Spanish reading development for any student learning Spanish. So today we're focusing on Word Warm-Ups Live. Let's talk for a minute about why it works. We know that students who can't decode words accurately and automatically are not going to be fluent readers. So Read Naturally developed 3 levels of Word Warm-Ups, which is now Word Warm-Ups Live. It reinforces phonemic awareness and builds phonics skills. It develops mastery and automaticity in decoding, and it supports fluency development. Now, why are decoding skills so important? Remember, decodable words can be sounded out because they have regular spelling patterns. So what percentage of English words do you think are actually decodable? It's more than you might think. About 50% of words in English have regular spelling patterns. So that means that each sound in a word matches the letter or letters that represent that sound, like these examples here: black, hot, and plain. Another 37% of words in English have just one error if you try to decode them. And usually that error happens when you're trying to decode that vowel sound. For example, the word temperature is almost decodable. A student just needs to learn that the vowel A in that 3rd syllable in temperature says the schwa sound, So research clearly shows the value of phonics instruction, and that makes sense when you realize that 50% of English words are decodable and 37% are very close. So the remaining 13% of words must be learned by memory as irregular words, like the word ocean. So most phonics programs teach students how to decode accurately, but just learning those phonics skills doesn't guarantee that students are also able to decode words automatically. And automaticity is important. From the research, we know that in order to become fluent readers, students need to learn to decode unknown words accurately and automatically. Because when a student is using all of their mental energy to sound out the words, they can't focus on the meaning of what they're reading. And that results in poor comprehension. And after all, comprehension is the goal of reading. Research also shows that students who haven't developed automaticity in reading single words by the beginning of second grade are at risk for reading failure. And we see that in our classrooms now. Word Warm-Ups Live combines teacher modeling, repeated reading, and progress monitoring, which is the Read Naturally strategy, to teach and reinforce phonics skills so students can become more proficient at decoding unfamiliar words. It's a mostly independent program and provides systematic instruction in the most common phonics patterns in a series of short, carefully sequenced steps. In the upper right-hand corner, you'll see an example of a word list exercise. That's the repeated reading piece of the Read Naturally strategy. Our lessons also include spelling activities that deepen students' mastery of reading and spelling. And we also have story exercises that give students practice in decoding words with featured phonics patterns in connected text. Let's take a look just real quick at the different levels of Word Warm-Ups Live and what each level covers. Level 1 begins by reviewing letter names and sounds, and then teaches early phonics skills using one-syllable words. And these skills usually correlate with phonics curriculum in first and early second grade. There's a complete scope and sequence in your handout on pages 6 and 7. Level 2 of Word Warm-Ups Live looks at compound words and one-syllable words combined with prefixes and suffixes. And these skills are going to correlate with phonics curriculum typically taught in second grade. Then we have level 3, which focuses on multisyllabic words with open and closed syllables and connectors. This level is especially helpful for older students who struggle to decode longer words that they might encounter in science and social studies content. All right, next we're going to look at using our assessment to make instructional decisions. We know that students who are struggling to read well might be struggling with fluency. They might be struggling with fluency and phonics, and they might be just needing help in phonics. Here's an example. Marcy's a second grade student. She meets the fluency benchmark goals for her first grade, but she needs phonics intervention. Her teacher realizes that Marcy is pretty good at decoding short vowel words, but she struggles with other phonics skills. And her teacher knows that she's reading below a third grade level. So based on that information, Marcy's teacher decides to give her the Word Warm-Ups Live phonics assessment. The results from that assessment will help her identify Marcy's earliest phonics need and place her in the appropriate section of Word Warm-Ups Live. And if it's appropriate, she might decide to place her in the Read Naturally Live phonics series. I just want to show you a little bit more about the Word Warm-Ups Live phonics assessment. It can be accessed either from the Read Live help page or from the Read Live student module or staff module. You can see it's a clickable table of contents, and it's going to walk you through some decision making about what Read Live program is appropriate for your student. It's also going to give you directions on preparing for the assessment and gathering materials. And then it's going to walk you right through the directions for giving this assessment to your students. It includes a level screener. So if you have a student that you don't know where their phonics skills are, you can give this first and then proceed with the rest of the assessment. It's also going to have student copies for each part of the assessment, as well as scoring worksheets for each part. And I'll walk you through downloading that in just a little bit. Let's go back to the PowerPoint. All right, so here's Marcy's assessment, the scoring worksheet that her teacher filled out. Her teacher decided to start testing her on long vowels with silent E because she knew that she was already solid with those short vowel words. So here's Marcy's answers, and you can see she only made one error in this section. The instructions tell us if she makes 3 or more errors, stop testing. But if not, continue testing. So the teacher's going to go ahead and give her the next section of the assessment. Now, this time, Marcy did make 3 errors. So her teacher has a decision to make. She has the option to place her in Word Warm-Ups Live, Level 1, Section D, or she can test her in Read Naturally Live to see if the Read Naturally Live phonics series would be a better option. Marcy's at benchmark level in fluency, so her teacher's going to have her just work in Word Warm-Ups Live, Level 1, Section D, on those long vowel sounds. Here's another example. Evan's a 5th grader. He needs fluency and phonics support. He could work in the phonics series of Read Naturally Live, but only if his reading level is below 3rd grade. So his teacher's going to test his fluency level first. On the Read Naturally Live placement test, Evan scored 70 words correct per minute at level 3.5. So there are 2 options for placement, the sequenced series or the idioms series. Remember, the phonics series is only appropriate for students who are at or below a 3rd grade level. So there's no recommendation here for phonics series for Evan. Evan's teacher decides to place him in sequence series level 3.5 to work on fluency and comprehension. Just a little review. The Read Naturally Live phonics series provides phonics instruction and builds fluency. Each level of the phonics series focuses on specific phonics skills. If a student's earliest phonics need matches the Read Naturally reading level, then they can work on fluency and phonics together in the phonics series. But since Evan is above that level, you can see there's no phonics series recommendation for him. So his teacher decides to go ahead and test him in the Word Warm-Ups Live phonics assessment. And his teacher already knows that he struggles with R-controlled vowels, so that's where she's going to start testing him. Here are Evan's responses. Because he made 3 errors in this section, his teacher decided to place him in Word Warm-Ups Live, Level 1, Section G, so that he can work on that area, vowels and the consonant R. So she's going to start him in Level 1, Section G to work on R-controlled vowels. And then for fluency, he'll work in Read Naturally Live, Level 3.5. And we'll talk about how to plan your time when you have students working in both programs in a little bit. Page 46 in your handout is a 1-page checklist of the steps that you go through when you're doing the phonics assessment. You might find this helpful to print it out and have it on a clipboard with your other assessment materials, especially as you get started giving the assessment. I hope it's helpful for you. All right, now we're going to get into how Word Warm-Ups Live works for our students. Just a reminder, here's the scope and sequence for Level 1 and Level 2. And again, it's also in your handout. So Level 1 has 9 sections with 69 exercises. And remember, it starts with letter sounds and moves through different vowel sounds all the way up to soft and silent consonant sounds. Level 2 has 8 sections with 68 exercises dealing with 1-syllable words, with prefixes and suffixes, and open and closed syllables. Here's the scope and sequence for Level 3. Remember, it's multisyllabic words, 7 sections with 48 exercises. And again, it can be especially helpful for those older students, even middle schoolers who are struggling to decode multisyllabic words. Each section has 5 exercise types. It's going to start with an introduction step that introduces students to the featured phonics patterns in that section. Then they're going to have a word list lesson, so they have the opportunity to practice decoding words with the featured phonics pattern. Review lessons are also word list exercises that include previously taught words. Then there's a story exercise in every section so that students have a chance to read connected text containing words with the featured phonics pattern. And then there is also going to be a challenge lesson in each section, another word list exercise that has more challenging words than the regular word list exercises. Now, a word list exercise also has several steps. You can see the progress bar at the top of the screen that kind of walks you through the steps, starting with look, listen, and respond. Then students have the option of doing the decode and read along step. They're going to practice their word list, practice spelling words with that featured phonics pattern, and then they're going to read the word list words for the teacher in the past step. And I'll show you all the steps when I do the demo. Now let's talk about story exercises. This is where students can experience those phonics patterns they've learned in the context of a larger text. And these stories, unlike Read Naturally Live, aren't necessarily structured to increase fluency. So a student's going to start off by listening to and reading along with a recording of the story so that they can hear those words pronounced correctly. That's our teacher model. Then they're going to practice the story independently, but these practices aren't timed. Finally, we want to make sure they understood what they read. So there's going to be a quick comprehension question after they're finished practicing the story. And last but not least, the past step. This is when the teacher is going to listen to the student read the story text. There's a steps poster in your handout on page 22. Might be helpful for you to print out so you and your students can see what the steps are like. And there's also another checklist for you on page 47 of your handout, just to kind of help you remember how to get your students started in Word Warm-Ups Live. You'll probably get really good at this as the time goes on. All right, so once again, I'm going to hop out of the PowerPoint and we're going to take a look at the staff member module. I'm going to start by logging in as my alter ego, Dan Phillips, and show you a little bit about what the teacher module looks like. I highly recommend that you check out the orientation and resources page. This is where you can also access the Read Live help page with lots of information about using our programs. And if you scroll down, you can see a bunch of links here. There's one for our online course. This is a free self-paced course that takes you even more in depth into Word Warm-Ups Live. You can also access the recording of our webinar. These videos, training videos for students, are also really helpful in guiding students through the steps of Word Warm-Ups Live. And I also want to point out our fidelity checklist. This is very helpful for making sure that you're using the program with fidelity. And again, all of this can be accessed from the Read Live help page. Let's go back to the teacher screen, and I want to just walk you through how to give your students access to Word Warm-Ups Live. So you're going to start by clicking on this student activity tile. We call it tiles. And here are the students that are licensed to this lead teacher. When you click on the triangle next to the student name, you can see the programs that they have access to. Now notice Karen doesn't have access to Word Warm-Ups Live. So when I click in this box right here and come up here to application specific actions, I can add Word Warm-Ups Live for Karen. It's going to ask me if I'm sure about this, and I'm going to say yes. I did the wrong thing, Word Warm-Ups Live. Then I'm going to add that for that student. And I want you to notice that the default assignment for Word Warm-Ups Live is Level 1, Section B. You can edit that assignment. So if Karen had taken the phonics assessment and maybe she needs help with long vowels, I can assign that here. We do recommend that you leave the word list goal at 40 words correct per minute. So save and close that. And then Karen is all set to work in Word Warm-Ups Live. All right, now I'm going to take you into the student side of the program. One of the things you can do as a teacher is log in as a student, which is kind of cool.
Please select the next exercise.
So there's always going to be directions given to the student on what the next step is. And there's also going to be a narrator that walks them through learning the phonics pattern. So I'm going to let you listen to a little bit of that.
Let's learn to read words with the letters IR, ER, or UR.
Click the word under each picture for a lesson.
Notice the progress bar up here is going to walk you through each step.
Look at the word bird. Bird has one vowel, I. The I is followed by the consonant R. Together, these two letters say one sound, Listen for the sound in this word as you quietly read it with me. Ready? Bird.
So I'm going to mute the site for just a minute so I can kind of talk over it. So you can see that the student's going to click on a picture and hear a lesson about the featured sound. Then they're going to respond to the instruction by breaking the word down and reading it aloud with the narrator. This is really helpful for students who struggle with sounding out words, which I know a lot of students do, especially younger students. And it's also that teacher modeling step of the Read Naturally strategy. I'm going to turn the sound back on.
Listen for the sound in this word as you quietly read it with me. Ready? Curl. Look at the words. All the words follow the same pattern. Each word has one vowel followed by the consonant R. Together in each word, the vowel and R says
Click each button, quietly sound out, and then read the word with the audio.
Irk, her, verb, earn, hurl.
Click a word again, or click Next to continue.
Click Next to continue, or click Start Read Along. Then, decode and read along with the audio.
Now, this is the decode and read along step. It is optional for students, but it gives them an additional level of support when they need help sounding out these words. So I'll show you what happens when I click on Start Read Along, and they're going to get an audio and a visual representation of each word.
Irk, sir, dirt, shirt.
Click Next to continue, or click Start Read Along. Then, decode and read along with the audio.
So after they read all the words by sounding them out, then she's going to read across the rows. This is, again, optional, and the default is 0. So if you want your students to do this every time, you're going to need to set it using the teacher options. And I'll show you those teacher options in a little bit.
Click any words you don't know and read them with the audio. When you're ready, click Start Timing, read down the columns, and click Finished. Then, read across the rows and click Finished again.
So remember, they can click on any word
Irk.
to hear it read. They're going to start by reading down the rows, and then they're going to read down the columns, and then they're going to read across the rows. And it's going to keep track of how many words per minute they read. When they click on a word to hear it sounded out, that's subtracted from their words per minute score. So when they finish reading down the columns, they're going to click on Finished. Then they're going to read across the rows. And they might need to practice this several times. And that's another way to differentiate instruction. If you have a student that needs extra practice with this particular skill or phonics pattern, you can go ahead and give them extra practice as well.
You've reached your goal. You've finished all your practices. Click Start Timing to practice again, or click Next to continue.
Click the speaker icon to hear a spelling word. Then, type the word and click Show Me to see the correct spelling.
So in this step, they're going to practice encoding the words that they've learned to decode. And I'll let you have a listen to exactly how the word is presented.
Dirt. D-er-t. The dirt road is very narrow. Dirt.
Okay, so they'll click on
Compare
Show
your
Me.
word to the correct answer. Fix your word if it doesn't match. Then, click Check.
So it's that immediate feedback. They get to see exactly what the word should look like, and then they can retype.
Click Next to continue.
Purr. P-er. A cheetah can run over 50 miles per hour. Purr.
And remember, these are all words that they've already seen. And they
Click
get
Next
that,
to continue.
they get that sound that tells them they've got it correct.
Term. T-er-m. The length of a president's term is 4 years. Term.
Click Next to continue.
Burn. B-er-n. I hope he does not burn the toast. Burn.
So I need to check that. I need to go back and fix it. And the computer's keeping track of which words I get correct on the first try.
Click
Hurt. H-er-t. The girl fell down and hurt her knee. Hurt.
Click Next to continue. Play this game while you wait for your teacher. Click the best answer to score points. If there's a speaker icon, click it. Click any word or picture you don't know to hear what it is.
So this fantastic activity is a great way for students to build their phonemic awareness skills. And like the coach just said, all of the words are clickable.
Farm.
So we can make a decision. Farm can mean, sure, it can mean ranch.
Click Next to try another question.
Notice that whenever the screen is red at the top and the bottom, that means the student's waiting for the teacher to come and work with them. And this is also a good way for teachers to notice that their students are waiting. So when the teacher's ready to work with the student, they're going to click on Conduct Past Activities and log in. And now the teacher is going to listen to the student read the word list and keep track of their number of errors. Remember, this is exactly the same word list that they've been practicing, so it's familiar to them. And notice that going down the columns, all those words are in the same word family, but going across, it's going to be a little bit more challenging. In order to pass, the student has to read with 3 or fewer errors and at their goal rate. So when they get to the review work stage, the teacher is going to review how the student did on this and on their spelling and decide if maybe they need a little bit of extra practice.
Wait for your teacher to enter the number missed. Then click Next to continue.
Okay, so we're going to click on Next. And they get that immediate positive feedback, that progress monitoring step to show how they did compared to their goal. And then they also get to see exactly how they performed on this activity. Notice that they did make 4 errors on the word list, and they missed a couple on the spelling. If I scroll down, I can see exactly what words they missed on the spelling. So maybe that's something they need a little bit more additional practice. It also keeps track of what words I clicked on when I was doing the practice word list step. And if you come up here, you can see their graph of how they did on the word list and how they did on spelling on the last couple of exercises. Now you have an option as a teacher to require the student to go back and do another decode and read along, or to go back and redo the spelling, or you can go ahead and pass them with their current scores. So there's lots of options.
Congratulations. You passed this exercise. Click Done to finish.
All right, next,
Please select the next exercise.
We're going to take a look at a story exercise. After they've completed...
Look at the story. Notice many words in this story have one or two vowels and the consonant R.
Click Start Read Along and read along as the story is read to you.
So notice this story has a certain style. If you have a student that is ready for a little bit more challenging story, you can log in and adjust those story options right here. You can change them to a more challenging version of the story. Okay, so I'm going to close out of that.
Look at the story. Notice many words in this story have one or two vowels and the consonant R.
Click Start Read Along and read along as the story is read to you.
So I'm going to mute this while we're, but I want you to hear.
Grow. To grow corn, a farmer first plants kernels or seeds. They plant the kernels a few inches apart in the dirt.
So you can hear that the narrator's reading the story slowly enough so that the student can really get an opportunity to hear what the word sounds like. And they're going to read the whole story, not just for a minute, but they're going to read the whole story so that they really get a chance to understand what they're reading. And again, this is one of those things that you can adjust the number of times that a student's going to have to read along. If they need additional practice with those sounds, you might have them do that. You can also print out the stories for students so that they can take them home and practice, so that they can do some underlining of words that they're having an especially hard time with. So let me unmute it again. She's almost finished reading.
Soft starch surrounds a drop of water. When a person heats a popcorn kernel, the water turns into steam. The steam needs a bigger space than the water. The steam starts to push on the firm shell of the kernel. Finally, the shell bursts open, turning the kernel inside out. Now, the soft starch is on the outside. The special corn has popped and is ready to eat.
Click Start Read Along to read along, or click Next to continue. Click Start Reading and begin reading. Click the words you don't know to hear them read to you. Click Finished Reading when you finish reading the story.
So again, you've got this reading guide that a student
First.
can use. All the words in the story are also going to be clickable. So there are a lot of ways to scaffold instruction for the student.
You finished reading too quickly, and you probably didn't understand what you read. Please practice again.
I got impatient. Let's start over. So the practice step is a great opportunity for students to become more automatic and accurate with their decoding. This reading is not timed, and there is no fluency score. And the main purpose of reading this story independently is so that students can read those words with the featured phonics patterns in connected text. The student needs to read the whole story and decode all those phonics patterns and also have comprehension of what they're reading. Now, remember, this is the more challenging version of the story. If you have a student that needs an easier version, you can change that in that exercise options screen that I showed you. Okay, so we're on the last page of the story. We're finishing up. You can see there are lots of words with that featured phonics pattern. And the student has already practiced words with the AR, the IR, the OR pattern in this section.
Click Start Reading. Click each blank and pick the best answer. Then, click Next.
All right, so now we've got a modified close activity for students to try, see how well they understood the story that they read. see how well I understood the story. Let's see. And it's going to give me some feedback on how I
Play
did.
this game while you wait for your teacher. Click the best answer to score points.
Once
If
again,
there's a speaker icon, click it. Click any word or picture you don't know to hear what it is.
the teacher is going to come along and conduct those past activities so that they can hear how well the student is doing reading words with those featured phonics patterns. They're also going to review the student's performance on their quiz, and the teacher will decide whether the student needs to go back and read the story again, do the quiz activity again. I did get them all right, so that's great.
Congratulations. You passed this exercise. Click Done to finish.
All right, so we are done with
Please select
this
the
whole
next
thing
exercise.
except for the challenge. So let's go back to the PowerPoint. I want to talk a little bit more about how Word Warm-Ups Live can help meet individual student needs. So in a multi-tiered system of support, which I know a lot of school systems are using, Word Warm-Ups Live can help meet the needs of students served in tiers 1, 2, and 3, and students who receive special education services. So for tier 1 students, we recommend students working in Word Warm-Ups Live for about 10 minutes a day to help reinforce the phonics skills they're learning in core instruction. That will help them build automaticity in decoding, as well as practicing spelling words with those featured phonics patterns. When you have students in tiers 2 and 3 for intervention, they can work in Word Warm-Ups Live for 20 to 30 minutes a day. We recommend that amount of time 3 to 5 times a week. So they'll be working on phonics skills that maybe they need to go back and master, that they're a little bit behind on. They'll also be mastering those phonics skills, building automaticity and accuracy, and spelling the words. And then for special education students, you can assign them to specific lessons to help meet their long-term and short-term IEP goals. If you have an older student who maybe just needs to work on long vowel sounds, you can assign those specific exercises and move the student more quickly through only the skills that they need to address. And I just want to mention that our program does use systematic explicit instruction, which is highly recommended for students with learning disabilities or severe dyslexia. We've got a very strong scope and sequence, and we want to make sure that students master the skills at each exercise before they move on. Here are some options for students who are working in Word Warm-Ups Live and Read Naturally Live. So again, you could have a student work for 10 minutes a day in Word Warm-Ups Live and then switch to Read Naturally Live for the rest of the session. Or you could alternate between the two programs. You could have them complete an exercise in Word Warm-Ups Live and then go back to Read Naturally Live and switch back. Students are really good at becoming very adept at switching back and forth between the programs. So I'm going to take you back to the Read Live platform, and I'm going to show you how you can print out some of the reports for Word Warm-Ups Live. So we log in as a staff member. I'm going to go to the home page and click on the reports tile, Word Warm-Ups Live reports, and student level reports. So here's a list of all the students that I have. I can click on a specific student and then click on generate reports for selected if I just want to see reports for that student for Word Warm-Ups Live. Then I'm going to be able to see exactly how she's performed in each section that she's been working in. It's going to tell me how many practices she did. It's going to tell me how many words she missed on the spelling activity. And it's going to tell me how she did on the quiz as well. So I'm getting an idea of her comprehension as well as her performance on all the different exercises. There's also the word list graph that shows how many words per minute she read correctly. That's very helpful when you have students who are working on developing their fluency as well as their phonics skills. You can also take a look at spelling, and it tells you exactly which words they missed on each of those spelling activities. And then, of course, the exercise details, where you can go through and see which words they missed on spelling, which words they clicked on during the word list step as well. And the teacher menu, this is always a great resource. Here are all the things you can do in the teacher menu in Word Warm-Ups Live. It gives you a lot of different ways to accommodate your students' learning needs and adjust the program. You can print exercises from here. You can also print awards and send them home so that your parents know how your students are doing. You can also reset an exercise if a student has really had a hard time on a certain skill. And then also notice that you can change the story version over here. You can also adjust the number of word list practices and the number of read-alongs that a student has to do. Lots of opportunities for differentiation here. And here's a bigger screen of that exercise options page. So today we've talked about the basics of Word Warm-Ups Live, including how to make instructional decisions for your students' needs. I hope you found today's webinar helpful and informative. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Remember that Read Live help page is a great resource for lots of information about all of our programs. And then the Word Warm-Ups Live section has specific information about Word Warm-Ups Live. And a lot of the things that we've talked about today can be found there.
Thanks, Diana. It doesn't look like we have any questions. I just want to remind everyone that we'll be sending out follow-up emails with links to the webinar recording and handout in about 24 hours. Please feel free to share those with your colleagues. Also, please respond to survey questions that will appear on your screen after the webinar so we can continue to improve the educational experience for all of you and our future webinars. And please follow us on your favorite social media platform. Thanks for joining us today.